And we're live?
And we're live. It is Friday, January 30th. My name is John Lamberger. Welcome to MooreCast, a podcast of the Moorepost publication. My name is John Lamberger. I am the creative director of Mooreposts. Today I have with me our first introductory guests. These two people you should know. To my left, I have Braxton Fuller. He is the co-founder and
Managing editor?
Editor at large?
Something about words. That's something about posts, something about more of them is the way that I understand it.
Really just focusing all of the editorial work.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to crank out garbage, no quality, just more of it,
Yes.
That's the creative, the vision of the company as I understand it.
Absolutely. And on my right, I have the other co-founder of Mooreposts. He's the Moore in Mooreposts.
Oh, yeah.
Connor J.L. Moore.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am the editor-in-chief, so just overseeing everything, content, editorial. We focus on quality, incredible
No, we don't.
works.
Don't listen to him. Don't listen to
Lies,
him out
deception,
there.
propaganda. So this podcast, MooreCast, I was really thinking this would be a fun, roundtable, light, end-of-the-week conversation with people associated with Mooreposts. We'll probably have differing guests. We'll talk about some things in the week that are happening, perhaps something fun, something light, nothing too dark or depressing.
Well, I've got an article in the works. It's called "Honey, Would You Let the Barbarians In?" Which is about the Roman relationship with Germanic migration in the aftermath of the crisis of the 3rd century. So, like neo-Nazis and reactionary right-wingers. I introduced the article with the example of Boris Johnson giving a speech at the Colosseum at COP26, where he talks about the Roman Empire fell because of out-of-control illegal migration, and that history was moving backwards, and that people should not be so naive to think that history only moves in one direction. And arguments like that proliferate on Twitter and social media. And I mean, to just reduce my issue with it as a devoted class assistant liberal is that they need to get their hands off of my empire. It's a completely revisionary take and is a reflection not of an actual scholarship of Roman history, but instead a reflection of their contemporary ideology.
Just to clarify, are you saying 380 or BC?
AD.
Oh, okay.
AD.
All right.
So the crisis of the 3rd century was a bunch of issues. I mean, really, the Roman world fell apart twice. It fell apart in 476 AD, and it fell apart in the 200s AD, but they were able to stitch it. They were able to stitch it back together. Sorry, there's the knocking. It's getting louder.
Yeah.
Should I ignore that?
Let me check. 1 second. Keep talking. As you're saying, the 3rd century crisis in the Roman Empire.
Well, yeah, during the 2nd century AD, Rome faced the end of the classical warm period, so agriculture became permanently less effective than it was throughout the entire existence of what we think of as classical archaic Greece, as well as the Roman Empire. So there was less food. Smallpox got introduced for the first time to the Mediterranean, so vast swaths of the urban and rural population died. There was no one in the fields. There was no one manning the frontiers. There was nobody in the marketplaces. Everybody was dying. There was civil war. There were 50 emperors in 50 years, and actually the empire split into 3 for about 30 years. The Gallic Empire in the north, the Roman Empire in Rome, and the Palmyrene Empire to the east. But really, the system that the dynamic Roman administrators such as Diocletian, Aurelian, Trebonianus Gallus created in the aftermath of that horrible century was the model that allowed the Roman Empire to persist until the 5th century AD. And part of that was there was nobody in the legions, there was nobody in the marketplaces, there was nobody in the cities. So what they did is they threw the borders open, and they allowed mass German migration to come into the Roman Empire through a process called consensus, the base of our modern word consensus. And it was a process. I mean, Roman migration was always such that the borders were always porous to individuals and small parties. So if you were on the German side of the Roman border and you wanted to become a Roman taxpayer, it was relatively simple to just cross the border and become a Roman taxpayer. But if you were in a tribe of, let's say, 300,000 people fleeing from a dissolving political situation in Pannonia or Dacia,
Right.
then you would come to the Roman border. You would ask the Roman administrators to allow you to settle in the empire. They would tell you to come back at a pre-agreed date, and then they would facilitate your crossing into the empire under an overwhelming legionary force. Like, there would be a huge Roman army there, allowing these people to cross. They would leave their weapons there, and then they would be dispersed across the empire. So this family to Syria, this family to Italy, this family to Spain. And the only thing that allowed the empire to exist, the only reason it didn't completely collapse in the 3rd century AD, was because they needed these Germans to come. And the system only fell apart when the Romans started to resist them and not effectively integrate them into Roman society. So it's a much more complicated. Like,
Right.
there's things that you can see there that support classically liberal positions and classically conservative positions.
So the very crux of your article is, look at this deeply understood historical thing. We're sort of living through a similar disruption, reactive backlash, but there were positives that we're maybe not privy to.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly positives there. What I find disturbing is that people simplify a very, very, very complex historical narrative to justify their preconceived notions about immigrants. And the conclusion of my article is drawing on Roman history of the period, they call it the migrationary period, drawing on what allowed Rome to create a positive feedback loop with the barbarian, quote unquote, immigrants, and why that feedback loop stopped. And I draw conclusions about how the United States and Europe should react to the upcoming period of
Right.
climate migration that we're all going to have to deal with for the rest of our lives.
Right. And I'm not too familiar with Boris Johnson or Johnsonism. Was he always sort of bringing forth this ahistorical thing? Or is he really just an avatar for everyone else who creates these ahistorical narratives to sort of build a nation and like campaign and stuff? Like, we were always British, like...
Well, it's funny saying, we were always British because, I mean, Britain was, of course, a Roman province for 700 years. I bring up Boris Johnson because he's perhaps the least effective person making that argument. And in the end, he's the funniest. Boris Johnson he has this quixotic, like, mix of perpetual British aristocratic bewilderment combined with like a pub lout,
He's somehow very dangerous, but also like very like goofy and disarming.
Yeah.
It has like that strange combination. That's
reminds me of somebody else.
Are they in the room?
No.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, that sounds great. I'm excited to read that.
Yeah?
What's it called again?
It's called Honey, Would You Let the Barbarians In?
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah.
Exciting.
People are always like, France, Germany. I'm like, they were the Carolingian Empire at one point.
Carolingian.
Carolingian. Yes. Thank you. Absolutely. Damn.
Caught you slipping up there.
Yeah.
It is
Jeez.
very incredible and fascinating all the time to listen to Braxton talk about this period of history. I mean, that's like your primary scholarship in undergrad, focusing on the Roman Empire, focusing on these time periods. Would you say that you're primarily a historian by trade as compared to what we study now? How do you
Oh,
see yourself?
absolutely.
Yeah?
It's international studies is not as fun as the little stories of the past. I mean, the little stories of the past. I mean, Rome especially has a vibrant political relationship with now. And it always has. I mean, the rigor of the classics is primarily in understanding each person's relationship to the Roman past that they are conveying to you. So, like Suetonius, the 12 Caesars, Suetonius was very negative about the last Flavian emperor, Domitian, because Domitian was the opponent of Nerva and the Trajan and Hadrian and the emperors that he was alive during. So Domitian has had a very negative historical reputation.
Does anyone today globally, probably Europe, but does anyone else like take up the mantle of like the Roman Republic, Roman Empire? Like, do you see any of that? Like the EU is like, we are the new Roman Republic or something. Is there any language like that going on?
Every year when the president gives his annual address to Congress, and he's up there on the speaker's dais,
Isn't it the symbol right behind it? It's the wheat and the...
No, it's so.
You know what I'm talking
it's,
about?
Yeah. It's the fasces, which
The
is
bundle of sticks.
yeah, the bundle
right.
of lictors rods
okay, yes.
around an axe head is what it is. It was the symbol of consular authority during the Roman Republic. But I mean, certainly, I mean, American.
Right. Out of many, one. You know, it's all the symbolism of we are stronger together.
Do you know where that comes from? E pluribus unum. Do you know where that comes
I
from?
think it's Latin.
It is Latin. It is Latin. It comes from a recipe to make a certain kind of cheese. So Pliny is talking about no, seriously,
That's crazy.
Pliny it's Pliny. It's certainly Pliny. He was writing a recipe, and is saying that the ingredients need to be mashed together until many colors becomes one. E pluribus unum. It's about cheese.
Is it out of many one, or is it out of one many?
So it's
For cheese, I guess.
it's certainly out of many one. It's
Okay.
because he's saying that the ingredients of the
Right.
cheese need to be compounded into one color. Where there were many colors, there needs to be one when the cheese is done.
That's probably because it's always like, well, it could be either or. You know, the translation, we don't know. It's lost to time. But it sounds like it's certainly just one cheese recipe.
It is certainly one cheese recipe is where it comes from.
Wow.
That's amazing. Never heard that before.
Enjoying the podcast? Hey, it's Mia, the Deputy and Chief Editor at Mooreposts. Visit the Mooreposts website and the links to our social media below to check out a variety of credible and quality insights on current affairs. Our content is free and accessible to all. Subscribing means notifications to our brand new work and helps us grow our audience. Thank you for your support.
Isn't history just great?
You know, I did one of my degrees in undergrad was in history, and I thought I was going to head down that path, do a master's in history, but we're a little bit different in the sense of like what we want to be focusing on. I'm always like current affairs, which is good, but also the historical side is fascinating too. And it's going to be really entertaining to see
Well, it's all
Braxton.
a fractal, man. It's all repetition.
Yeah.
It's all constant variations of the same theme. The past is the present. The present's the past.
I consider this, IR to be the history of now. You know, it's all very similar. Like it's people and their relationships and how they act and behave, and we have this long historical record of what has happened, and we're kind of living through history at all times.
What I find fascinating about international relations is all of the most famous international relations scholars of each generation are wrong about what the future will be. I mean, like Francis Fukuyama, the end of history, the repeat of Hegelian philosophy, it's
History is not going to end itself. He's like threatening us.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, this is Fukuyama. What are
it's
you
the
doing?
only field that's wrong every time.
I don't know about that. I mean, I feel like
I mean, that's. I'm sorry to cut you, but that's just science, right?
Yeah,
We should
exactly.
build upon it and get the right methods.
Is there ever really, truly, at least in the social sciences, a actual, accurate, fully normative theory?
No, but
and I
it's-
would say no, right?
It's
So-
nonsense trying to get to one, though, is the point. I mean, the whole field's
right.
predicated on this idea of studying the international order, but we only have a sample size of one.
Yeah.
We-
like,
yeah.
But in physics, there's like the law of physics. Like there's always have these constants of like, an object at rest will stay at rest. Is there anything that comes even close to being a law of social science? Humans are mortal. I don't know.
I think the greatest law of social science is you can catch the devil, you just can't keep him for very long.
Damn.
Jeez.
Wow. Braxton Fuller, the Isaac Newton of social science.
Oh boy.
That's actually what my Wikipedia page will start with.
Damn. That's a personal dream of mine, is to have my own Wikipedia page and just like birth, death, picture of me, like some, that's about it. Just not very
John
deep.
Lamberger is famous for being the first man not to die.
Yeah.
Man is not mortal.
Sheepland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be like a 1.5 paragraph.
Yeah.
My name is misspelled. I don't know.
Yeah. Jeez.
Connor, what are you working on? What do you want to talk about?
Oh boy. I mean, the thing I'm trying to finish right now is hopefully going to be the next piece. And it's about China's cyber typhoon operations, which is surprisingly a very unknown topic, but it makes sense because unless you're in the field, you're not very privy to it. The whole point is basically that China most likely, almost certainly, to use some strategic intelligence terms, has a kill switch on America's critical infrastructure, which has so many implications for not only Americans, the everyday American, and their safety, the very everyday actions and services we rely upon, but also internationally, what that could do, what that could look like. And one of the, at least what a lot of scholars believe about this topic, is this kill switch per se would likely be utilized in the event China tries to move on Taiwan. So basically, if you can knock out a bunch of critical infrastructure within the U.S., power plants,
ports,
water,
airports.
services, airports are communication and command structure, potentially in certain, just creating mass chaos within America so that it delays response not only from the U.S. towards China over a potential invasion of Taiwan, but also our allies. So sowing chaos within the very, let's say the order or the allies, the Western allies that is beginning to rupture now, which we don't need to get into, but
What?
that's a whole nother topic. But it is fascinating to get into the nitty-gritty stuff. I started this research under one of my favorite professors, Dr. Ben, and I've been working with him on multiple things, all the way to the AI advancement from China and the threat that poses to U.S. homeland security, national security.
So I understand that you're only analyzing the Chinese capabilities, but what this makes me think of is prior to the operation in Venezuela to kidnap President Maduro, we turned off all of the electricity in Caracas.
Yeah.
So the United States certainly has that capability, and against China, and China almost certainly has that capability against us. But is there a certain mutually assured destruction aspect to China does have that capability, but if they do it, we'll do it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's mad.
So it's mad. And so it's amazing you brought this point up, because this is stemming from a full-blown threat assessment, which most people would find way too boring to read, and I understand that. But in one of my recommendations, I basically said we need a new MAD, but in cyber operations. We don't like, the thing about cyber is there's a lot of unknowns. So even when we're thinking about what's happening in Iran right now and the options that the current administration might have of kinetic strikes all the way to cyber, Starlink, tons of different things. The thing about cyber is we're unsure of how long it'll take to potentially, utilize cyber operations within the command and control or law enforcement within Iran. So we don't know like the details, how long that would take to prepare. But it's a good question of like, within this topic is, are we more focused on defensive cyber actions, creating more resiliency within our infrastructure, within our networks, or should we be focusing on offensive capabilities?
I think Iran is a pretty interesting example in the framework that you're talking about. Iranian capabilities, American capabilities, Chinese capabilities. I mean, the reason why we have the option of kinetic strikes on the table with Iran is because there's no successful model of deterrence that they still have. Like Iran doesn't have those capabilities that China has against us. So my question is you say we need a new MAD in the cyber domain. Do we need a new MAD, or does mutually assured destruction happen when both sides have devastating capabilities over each other? Do you need to like talk to each other about that, or does it just exist?
It's a great question, and I haven't dove too much into like the offensive aspect. I've been focusing primarily on like the vulnerabilities within US networks, all the way from private to public. It is a very interesting question, especially with cyber, how that looks, because it's completely different from this idea of like nuclear weapons. So I forget who it was. One of our peers was talking about in class.
You don't really know
Yeah.
about offensive. If you
Yeah.
use it, you can counter it. It's
Yeah.
almost an arms race to it. In terms of mutually assured destruction, like with atomic weapons, there was a language that the U.S. and Soviet Union used in presenting and signaling, hey, we're going to put nukes in Cuba. Oh, America found out. Now America is thinking about blockading. It was a back and forth. Like at one time, the Soviet Union had trucking. They trucked their nukes all around Siberia, where they could just turn into ICBMs and launch them. And then the United States had no counter. And so this language pushes back into other fields like, hey, we're going to move these ships over here. We're going to, it's an escalation, de-escalation language that could end everything at any point.
But it's also really important to understand, at least from the PRC China side, is they're using like non-state entities for their cyber operations. So there's Salt Typhoon, Volt Typhoon, Flax Typhoon, and so many more now. So it's
So these are groups? Like, is it like the Chinese, like, not Chinese, Russian bot farms? Like, is it like similar model?
it's like these Chinese-backed entities, like not completely defined, at least from public disclosure aspect. There are certain individuals that have been linked to certain entities that are committing espionage or these attacks within like the US Treasury. They have been sanctioned in the past. But it's like it's a lot more unknown and complex than talking about these nukes that a nation state has, whereas not like it's unclear if you can even apply doctrinal language to this domain. And so one of our peers was explaining that like back in the 2000s, they basically tried to copy and paste our nuclear doctrine to cyber. And now they're realizing that's just like absurd. And what do we do? And in the past less than a decade, right, like the US has been rushing to figure out and staff certain things. That's another amazing aspect is we are so understaffed in the cyber domain that it's just insane. I forget which FBI director it was. Maybe it was just a public release. Back around 2020, I believe, basically said if you're an American adult, it's almost certain that the PRC has something on you about your data, things like that. I mean, these operations have been going back a while, but these cyber typhoons have been, I believe, the earliest identified, or they began to start, noticing a bunch of patterns within these operations was 2021. And then just in the previous 3 to 4 years, the U.S. government has been identifying and releasing more information about what they are doing, what they see.
Well, of course, though. I mean, China probably has something on every American period adult child.
And you know
in a
that.
coma.
All my DoorDash
yeah.
orders.
But
You
I mean,
guys
come
know
on,
that
look at
being in the study, but that's not necessarily something that an everyday American is like thinking about. Of course, there's so many cyber threats.
What about the
out
NSA
there.
though? Come on. I mean, what about the Five Eyes? I mean, you know who also has something on every single American adult and who could probably leverage that information more effectively? The United States government.
For sure. I mean, yeah, it's just like a topic that isn't discussed as much for those interested.
The doctrinal
60 minutes.
application of mutually assured destruction is really interesting, though. I don't think it works in the same way as nuclear weapons because the ladder of escalation is so much longer with a cyber attack. Like at one level, maybe turning off a turbine at a hydroelectric plant, causing electricity costs to skyrocket in a certain region, destabilizing a state, maybe
a whole grid.
Yeah. And then it goes all the way up to, all right, we're going to open the floodgates on the dam and we're going to flood an entire city. Like it's a lot more nuanced than I'm going to destroy an entire city.
When we think about what warfare and conflict might look like moving forward, we're entering a new stage of, I believe it was Carlin and Foreign Affairs dubbed it total war. So it's now, back in the 2000s, early 2000s after 9/11, we were focused on, non-state actors, terrorist groups. And then before that, during like the Cold War, we're talking about great power competition. And then even beyond that, we're talking now about great power competition, if not conflict, non-state actors, which dives more into even the US and Russia and China hiring these contracted security groups to go carry out operations. It's going to just make it it's just insane how many elements are now at play.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to understand is like, it can certainly become kinetic. Like you can just Hoover Dam just bursts. So I don't know if that's even possible, but Hoover Dam bursts open. Certainly kinetic, certainly affecting people's lives. But is it as existential as a nuclear exchange? Like, is it limited or is it unlimited in what China and maybe the U.S. can do to each other?
I mean, I don't think anything's as existential as a full-blown nuclear exchange.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree that's probably...
Like you mentioned, it would delay. That sounds so much nicer than radioactive hellscape.
100%.
Okay. I agree.
It's just this new domain of like uncertainty. We haven't like fully seen this amount of emerging threats happening.
It's the Wild West
once.
of AI and cybernetic
And
warfare.
then you're talking, about plausible deniability within these things. So it's harder to attribute, even on the international stage, international community, all these different things. So it is amazing. Back in, I believe, fall of 2023, Jake Sullivan, the former national security advisor to Biden, was in a meeting with major American telecommunications and technology companies, and basically notified them that I believe it was 12 critical infrastructure entities within the U.S. Could be shut off at will by China. So it's wild. The whole thing is just like very uncertain in all.
I don't know
These
if you want
different
to get
factors
into
at play.
detail about that, but is it like just over the internet, or is it like Chinese embedded technology, backdoor stuff? Like,
It's a multitude of different things. The primary one that is talked about a lot is these living off the land techniques, where they get into a system and then they are undetected because they're lying low, but they're installing malware on these networks and just laying low until it like they need it, you know. So it's but there's tons of different things that this could have so many implications for, about even like espionage on the United States, and yeah, just
An interesting case study on how to maybe not combat but defend yourself from malware attacks like that. Reminds me of Stuxnet and you know, the United States disarming for the first time way back in the late 1990s, early 2000s. Stuxnet, yeah.
that was certainly like pre like the John Kerry led
Yeah.
thing. I think that was sometime before that.
Well,
2020.
it reminds me. It reminds me. You know, the Iranians overhauled their whole nuclear system to disallow anybody plugging a USB flash drive into all of their infrastructure, and the United States, of course, has just too many soft points. Like you can quarantine a nuclear program, but you can't quarantine every electrical grid, every nuclear power plant, every dam, every hydroelectric system.
June 2010. It infected 1,000 centrifuges in 14 industrial plants in Iran.
But I think that the United States, maybe critical infrastructure, the most critical of critical infrastructure, if it can be hardened in certain ways.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's just gonna take
decentralized. Yeah.
so much to get this
I
done.
think it'll take an attack on us first before we realize how.
And commit that amount of resources. I mean, this thing is going to take a complete overhaul. You have so many, not only is it on like critical infrastructure. So for instance, other typhoons have gotten into the communications during the 2024 campaign of Harris, of Waltz. They got into Trump and JD Vance's communications. They've gotten into very basic routers in American homes, and all these different devices that are were never like, you know, even manufactured to in this sense of like security. So a lot of them are like very outdated, and we're talking, I don't have a number to put it on, but we're talking about an absurd amount of resources and energy and personnel into hardening our defenses properly. And it's very unclear. There's a lot of scholars that just say it's a lost cause and focus on the offensive side, and then vice versa.
I
It's a very
actually
complex
agree
thing.
with that perspective. If it is too vast a domain to defend, then you absolutely the best defense is a good offense in that perspective. You know, like it's like being on the Eastern European plain. You know, like it's all about maneuver warfare. You know,
Yeah.
is the way I would think about it. Maneuver warfare in the cyber domain. I'm copywriting that. I'm trademarking.
Yeah.
And the best offense is the one that exists.
Yeah.
So what you got cooking, John? What do you
Me?
have going on in that brain of yours?
What I have cooking? Well, instead of, aside from this wonderful time we've had on MooreCast, its introductory episode, I have another podcast I've been working on that I'm so excited to publish. It's called Sheepland with Lindsay and John. It's a great issues podcast in which we explore deeply the great issues facing the world and humanity, one subject at a time. Our first episode is on nuclear weapons.
Yep.
Super fun, very dark subject in which we explore the Cold War ended. Wow, there's no more the threat of nuclear Armageddon. Actually, we still live in that world.
Yeah,
Probably more so.
I've never understood, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. Have
Just
that-
came out a few days ago.
I just referenced that looking up your Stuxnet thing. I went on their
They
website.
moved it to what, 89 seconds
89
a few
seconds
days
to
ago.
midnight.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a good journalistic metric to communicate. Hey, we're concerned. We're going to do this thing. And
So two superpowers having a bunch of missiles aimed at each other. I don't understand how that's not a more dangerous environment than a bunch of conventional non-state actors that either superpower are supporting fighting each other across the world. Why are we closer to midnight now than, for example, when the Soviet Union was falling apart? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
well, there are way more countries that have nuclear weapons than just the U.S. and Russia. It's China, India, Pakistan, Israel, France, the United Kingdom.
And also,
North Korea.
Not only nuclear nuclear warfare, they take into account so many different things. I mean, we have the largest war in Europe since World War II occurring right now. The conflict in the Middle East.
Right.
They take
and really because it's such a hair trigger moment. Like if the Soviet Union attacked American Berlin, it was like boom, hair trigger, launched nuclear. We're still in that world where something like the Russo-Ukrainian war could hair trigger launch nukes, or China or the United States shoot each other intentionally in the Indo-Pacific, or something happens with India and Pakistan and China in the Kashmir. Like it's still a hair trigger world where things can just snap, boom, launch. So it's these misconceptions, this language of violence that could be misperceived and escalate all the way up the ladder into nuclear Armageddon.
So I'm just interested to know. I know that for episode 1 of Sheepland, coming out hopefully very soon, you interview Professor Doss, an expert on nuclear weapons and the field of nuclear weapons. What did he, or what do you think, are the most likely regions of the world to escalate into a nuclear conflict?
Like the Russo-Ukrainian war, you have Russia, who will move, they call them tactical nuclear weapons, to be used on a battlefield in war. They will move them in Belarus, like those units, like those military units who do the tactical movements. They'll train in Belarus, and they'll bring out the giant truck with the missile, and they'll stand it up vertically, and they'll do drills and stuff. That's all posturing to maybe threaten to use such a weapon. But here's the thing. Using a tactical nuke on a battlefield, like ideally if you're Russia, I'm going to launch this nuke, this tiny nuke. It's tiny.
It's a tiny little
It's a
nuke.
tiny little baby nuclear weapon. We'll launch that at Ukrainians. But here's the thing. You don't actually know what's going to happen when that thing explodes. It could be slightly larger than you think, smaller. It'll just kill everything and everyone in its path, and you don't know what the after effects of that are. There's such a legacy of violence that will come after this that goes way beyond just killing Ukrainian soldiers. It's going to go into the atmosphere. It's going to be around those people for decades, hundreds of years, and it's just going to scar the earth.
Yeah.
And so that could happen, and that could affect like when Chernobyl happened, like they were picking up radioactive signatures. And I'm not saying, Chernobyl is, but similar to a nuclear blast going off, but like it affects everyone around you.
Yeah, and so on the topic of
So that could escalate with European countries not even involved.
Yeah. Within the war, it was Bob Woodward who had a book that came out maybe a year ago. Not completely sure. But anyways.
He's had a few.
Yeah. He reported on a crazy story that has been verified. In March of 2022, after the invasion in late February, things were not going in the direction Putin expected, right? It was going to be a rout of the Russians going in and taking Ukraine. Now we're approaching 4 years of the war. And that March of that year, U.S. intelligence told Biden that there was a strong likelihood, very ambiguous terminology first and foremost, but, a strong likelihood that they expected Putin and the Russians to use a tactical nuke on Kyiv to wipe their problems off the board.
Oh, good Lord.
And so it's insane. Like, go search this up, Bob Woodward, on YouTube, watch the interview. He explains that then Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin was given the task to call up his counterpart in the Kremlin. He did, and he said, "We know you're, strongly considering using a tactical nuke. We wanted to tell you that if you carried this action out, the consequences will be devastating for Russia." And then his counterpart in the Kremlin basically said, we don't take kindly to threats like that. Lloyd Austin then goes, "I'm the leader of the most powerful military in human history. I don't make threats." And then Putin climbed off the escalation ladder. It's amazing because we have not realized those fateful moments until we hear a story from like reporting from Bob Woodward, right? How close we have been to these catastrophic events. And luckily, even China said it would be unacceptable if Putin used a nuclear weapon in Ukraine, which is a huge point because they're basically propping up Russia. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Did that answer your question?
Yes, John.
Oh, good.
Yes, it did.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this. Please go to mooreposts.com. Check out our articles. Check out our soon-to-be published articles and podcasts. To my left is Braxton Fuller.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I can't wait to make more posts. I can't wait to make more podcasts, more casts,
Oh, yeah.
more posts.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Make sure to like and subscribe.
And to my right, I have Connor Moore.
Yeah. Thanks for doing all this, John. It's
Oh, yeah.
a really incredible effort from so many people working on more posts. And we're just trying to spread some knowledge. That's it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm John Lamberger. This has been MooreCasts. We hope to see you next time. I think this was a lot of fun, and I really do hope to do more.